Hello and welcome to the next episode of my creative podcast. My name on Instagram is Orchid Heart and I'm in Birmingham in England, and it's a nice drizzly grey day in May. We did have a gorgeous day yesterday, so I'm not going to complain. And it's a Monday, it's a long weekend. We had a bank holiday because it was the King's coronation, which sounds really strange to say. So most people had some celebrations over the weekend. I did get to see lots of friends and family, which was nice. And yesterday I got to meet my sister-in-law, if any of us were married. She got some goats, so I'm sure I'll share some footage at the end because I've been so excited to meet them. They have a yard with lots of animals, and so they got some pet goats. And they're just so cute, and obviously troublemakers because goats are. So yeah, that was good fun. And so today it's the Monday. I should be working, but because it's a bank holiday, I'm not, and it's lovely. So I'm not bothered that it's raining. But yeah, so anyway, I did record this video last week and I didn't post it because it was an hour long and it didn't need to be an hour long. So I'm re-recording in the hope that this isn't an hour long because, yeah, I don't know, hour long, is that really that enjoyable to watch? I don't know. I do watch some videos that are that long, but I don't know, I'm trying to make them a bit shorter. But yeah, so we shall see how long this one ends up. I have also done a bit since I recorded it last week, so I thought maybe I'd share some of that. But so on the strength of this not going on forever, I do have quite a few whips I'm not going to share because they've not really changed much. My lento jumper I've not touched in a while, that kind of stills 3/4 of the way through the body. I did start some mohair socks, but I'll wait till they're finished because they're just plain mohair socks. And what else have I got? This, my East Wind jacket I'm not going to share either because I'm kind of slowly plugging away through the panels on it. And I am actually working on making a video just about the East Wind jacket in general. So yeah, I'm about 3/4 of the way through the main body of it now. So I'm not going to share those projects today. So I think that means I'm mostly sharing new whips, no finished objects, and some like plans, I think. I've been doing quite a bit of editing knits I've already made and trying to make them more useful. And then I have a bit of sewing, including this dress that I was going to share in my last video. I think I forgot. So I'll start with what I'm wearing. I'm wearing, it's tucked in a bit at the bottom. I'm wearing a Mount Pleasant tee. This is the second one I made, and it's in the Garthenor Presili yarn, which is really, really soft. I mean, I should have looked up the blend of what it was. But this is the second Mount Pleasant tee that I knit. And it was actually, I think, probably one of the first like lace things that I did. The first one, I think, was the first one. Because there's only like an inch or so of, well, a couple of inches of lace. And as you can see, it's the same pattern repeated 3 times. And it's bottom up, so you do the lace first. And so I thought it was a good way to kind of see whether I could knit lace or not. And the first one I knit in like a really rustic yarn by Mammoth Fibre. And I really liked it, but I couldn't wear it on bare skin. And so I wanted to knit one in a yarn I could wear on bare skin. I think I was also just starting to try more expensive yarns, and because this obviously is a short sleeve cropped tee, it didn't need that much. I think I just used 2 100-gram skeins, which actually is making me a bit nervous about my later project because I've got a project that I'm also making out of 2 100-gram skeins. I think I'm going to run out of yarn. We'll share that in a bit. And so this is perfect. It's so soft. I can wear it on bare skin. It's not an issue. But I must admit I don't tend to. I tend to wear a top underneath, mainly to protect the underarms from deodorant and sweat and things like that. I am also wearing a skirt that I made. So this is actually the bottom half of the Hinterland dress, so just the skirt section, which is just rectangles, to be honest. You don't need a pattern, I've put in an elasticated waist, and then I used the pockets from that pattern, but again, inseam pockets. If you've made basic dresses before, it's not hard. And then I just cut some straps, but again, I think I used the waist ties pattern piece from the pattern for that dress, and just made some buttonholes on the straps and then just sewed some buttons to the skirt because I wanted pretty buttons on the outside, but I didn't want the straps to be on the outside. I do have an ugly button on the inside to attach it to. So yeah, I used to wear the skirt loads. I don't wear it so much anymore. I have another one in like a dark purple and blue gingham from Merchant Mills. This is just cheap grey linen from eBay. This one I don't wear so much now because it has a bleach stain on it, but I do quite like wearing it in the house when I'm doing chores and stuff like that because I'm less precious about it. I did think about over dyeing it, but because the pockets are like a contrast retro colour, that would ruin that. So I know they're inside and you can't see them, but you know, it's kind of nice having a scruffy skirt that I still like wearing. I sometimes wear it to work because I have a creative job that can be quite scruffy and messy. So again, sometimes it's quite nice wearing something that feels me and a bit different, but also I'm not too precious about. But yeah, so really easy hack of the Hinterland dress. But yeah, that's what I'm wearing. So where shall I start? I shall start with the whip that I was referring to with this. So I think since before I could knit, I've just realised I've forgotten something. Am I going to edit this out or am I just going to go grab it? I'm going to go grab it and see how long it is to cut it out for me grabbing it. I think maybe you guys can live with that moment of me jumping out. I think when was it before I learnt to knit or right at the start when I was learning, I saw this pattern and it's been on my queue ever since, but I was really daunted because it had quite a few inches of lace at the bottom. And then I think lately I've not knit it because it's a summer top and I'm quite lazy about knitting summer tops because I'm not sure how wearable they are for me. But I mean, it's a beautiful pattern. It's the Tegna by Boyland Knitworks, and I'm sure you all know this pattern because it's one of those ones that does the rounds. So I have 2 skeins of Viola yarn that I bought in someone's de-stash last year. And it is Merino fingering in the colour Slate. And it's 400 yards per 100 grams, which is about 365 meters. So I have 2 of these. My size requires 800 yards, which is bang on what there is. So there's no room for error. In fact, I've apparently got 2 yards less. So a little bit like, shit. Sorry, I shouldn't say that on YouTube. I don't know, I'm really worried I'm going to run out of yarn. I'm really hoping I don't, because I don't actually want to compromise on the length of any of it. The length of the body, the length of the sleeves. And this is what it looks like. So when I recorded this video for you guys last week, I said I was going to knit the lace hem and then take the rest of it on holiday with me because it was just knitting round and round around stockinette for quite a while. I finished the lace hem and I didn't put it down because this isn't a topic I want to go into too much. I'm not really a royalist, I don't really have any strong feelings either way. But a lot of my friends wanted to watch the coronation, so I found myself in a situation where I had to sit down and watch a couple of hours of TV that I wasn't that interested by. But we were having nice food and cake and tea and, you know, the odd beer, so I was enjoying being with my friends. So I knit quite a lot of plain stockinette. So I have 2 things that I'm worried about with this. Is my size, the one I've knit, too big? Is this going to be too big for me? Am I going to run out of yarn? Maybe my gauge is off. I don't know. It's really hard to tell because it does have positive ease. So I think when I was looking at the sizes, I could knit the smaller size, but then there wouldn't have been very much positive ease. But then thinking about it now, if it was that size at the bust, like I have quite a small bust, so maybe it would have been okay. I am a little bit nervous. I'm going to knit the whole thing. I'm going to have to rip it out and knit it again because this does look quite big to me. But I wondered maybe I could do some decreases and decrease down to the smaller size on top. I don't know, because I think from looking at it, it has a drop shoulder, so some of that width gets taken up by sleeves, like this one does a bit. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm a bit worried about it. I've put a lifeline in after the lace. So I might put another lifeline in here. I've just run out of the first skein of yarn. And then if it is massively too big, I could rib back to here, do some decreases and make the top half a bit smaller. You know, and just wait and see. I mean, equally, this has taken me a couple of days. It wasn't that bad, but in those couple of days I have done a lot of knitting because we've done a lot of like travelling and stuff. So, like I spent 10 hours on the train the other day. I did quite a lot of knitting on the lace then. Do I want to do that again? I think sometimes with things like that, when you're like, you go through it quite quickly, but you also spend quite a lot of time doing it, is you feel really good about it. And then when you have to do it again, you're just like, I don't want to do that again. So I don't know. I think I find bottom up knitting, I don't really enjoy it. I much prefer top down because I feel so much more confident about the sizing of things. But then I get like the lace, it's kind of easier doing bottom up when there's lace on the bottom, because if you make a mistake it's easier to rip back and start again. But you know, I will say like this was 300 stitches I had to cast on, so that was quite a lot. But anyway, so this is kind of what it looks like. So it's this tonal sort of like greys. There are slight specks of other colours in there, but it's quite neutral. I have to admit I have no idea what I'm going to wear it with. I think people tend to wear them with jeans. I do wear jeans sometimes, but not that often. So we'll see. But it was on my like dream knitting list, so I'm really glad I've started knitting it. And yeah, we'll see. Because I do wear these a bit more than I thought I would. I didn't think I'd wear them that much at all. But around this time of year when it's not really warm enough to not have something on top, because I'm cold and this is a cold house, it's quite useful. The only thing is I do find that the cuffs here are quite tight. But then I did my other one where I did them too loose and they were really flared and looked terrible, so I had to redo it. So it does kind of limit me what I can wear underneath it. I think it also means because it's quite tight underneath, I don't wear it to work because I get quite hot at work. Whereas at home, like, I can control my situation a bit better. But yeah, so this is my Tegna so far. I'm knitting the second size. I don't know, have you knit one? Do you think I'm going to run out of yarn? I can't really tell where I am. Maybe there? There's quite a lot of knitting left to go. I'm really worried. I think it's got a lower neck though, so that should help. But yes, that's one whip. And then my other new whip. I don't think I showed this last time, but it's hard for me to remember, but seeing that I didn't show the last video I actually recorded. Another whip that, if you have followed me for a while, I did start knitting this 2 or 3 times before, but because I didn't like my colour choices, I scrapped it. So I'm hoping that this one now actually like happens, because every time I frog it, you end up with lots of little bits of yarn because you have to cut it. And I don't really want to end up like sabotaging more balls of yarn. But it is the Colour Craze Shawl. Sorry, this is in black and white, so it's harder to see. It's the Colour Craze Shawl by Tammy Gore. And the main colour I am using is this absolutely stunning. Is it going to focus? I don't know if it's going to focus or not. Is that focused? For some reason it's gone quite bright. There? Is that right? I think that, I can't tell because I'm further away from the phone. It's this really pretty eco printed yarn. And it's got purples, pinks, oranges, yellows. It's really, really pretty. And I've also got, so it's naturally dyed, some leftover scraps in like pinks, yellows, from Woolly Mammoth Fibre Company, woolen flower. And I've knit the first couple of sections, so I am here. So there's a bit of brioche, a bit of striping, which maybe you can't see from far away. So yeah, I'm on an eyelet section now. So it's going to be quite a low contrast shawl. It keeps turning around. In like pinks and warm colours. So these are mini skeins that I got in my advent calendar from Woolly Mammoth Fibre Co. a couple of years ago. I didn't really know what to do with them because they're not really my colour. And yeah, so I've been struggling to use them. But I think with this multicoloured hand-dyed one, which you can see up here, it looks really nice. But I have to admit, I do have some mixed feelings about this. I am really enjoying knitting it, so I think I am going to keep knitting it. And it will be what it is. It might be a bit mad. I would say, like, I think it looks quite summery, but I would love to be one of those people that can use shawls in the summer because, you know, England's cold, it does get cold in the evenings. But I always feel a bit silly in the evenings at barbecues wrapping myself up with like a woolly scarf because it's not something people do anymore. And maybe it's a bit like old lady vibes, I don't know. But so I struggle to use these beyond this point in the year. But I'm trying to make it normal. I don't know, like, I want it to be normal. I want it to be acceptable to wear a strappy dress and a woolly shawl and not a cardigan and that be the outfit. But I don't know, it's not really looked to see people do anymore. But I am enjoying the colours. And you know, if not, maybe I'll just wear it in the autumn. I think I am getting to that point now where I have got quite a few shawls and maybe I should stop knitting shawls because, you know, there's only so many you need and I probably have 4 now. But I have to be honest, I really like knitting them. I find them a lot less stress. I don't know, and I think you can be a lot more creative with it. So I do really enjoy knitting them. I should also say that I have changed the edging. I'm using the stretchy edge approach that I discussed in my last video. So if you want to know about that, then watch the last one. And I am still going to do the reel I said I was going to do. It's just, I think I need to make the video on the computer and then download it onto my phone to share it. And I have to admit that's taken me some time to psych myself up to do. Because when I tried to make the reel on my phone, I spent half an hour doing it and it didn't work. I don't want to do that again. So yeah. It will happen. I'm really sorry because I said I was going to do it when I finished my last short and I haven't. But yes, so, oh, and I've got this really beautiful bag that I bought a few months ago now. I had some money left over at the end of the month, a few months ago, earlier this year. And the artist that designs these bags, Eva from Blue Rabbit House, I do follow her. She's in Belgium or somewhere, and I was thinking like, oh god, I'd love to have one of her bags. Wouldn't that be so beautiful? And I was just looking at them, like daydreaming, because ordering from Europe, from England at the moment is not fun. And you know, she's on Etsy, so I think it's one of the better places to buy from because you do pay all the fees up front. So if you are in the UK and you can afford it, the price you pay on Etsy is the price you end up paying because it calculates all for you, so there are no surprises. So from that respect, it was really nice. So I was looking, thinking, could I put that on my wish list for a future purchase? Maybe. It was a bit out of my price range for a project bag. And so, but as I was Googling her, it came up with a UK yarn shop, Tangled Yarn, I think it's called. And I had actually already decided that this one was my favourite. And she had them. She only had 4 designs. This was one of them. And she had like a 10% off discount for that weekend for some reason. So I was like, this is fate. I have to have it. Because it's in UK. I'm not paying the crazy extra taxes. There is 10% off. So it was actually cheaper than buying directly from either. You know, I'm supporting a British yarn shop. So I think it's really, really lovely. I love like the gemstone and stuff. And I did actually make some stitch markers to go with it, which I shared last time with a little raven on. I would show you, but I don't have one to hand. There are still some available in my Ko-fi shop though, if you like ravens too. I was a big lover of Edgar Allan Poe as a teenager, and I studied American literature, and actually he did feature in one of my dissertations. So for me, this has like nostalgic Edgar Allan Poe vibes, bit witchy. I quite like it. So yeah, really enjoying it. And it's really good quality as well. I am struggling to close it all the way at the moment, but I was told that it would all soften up a bit more with use and that would start getting a bit easier. So yeah. Oh, and this is the medium size. But yeah, so really loving that. So I think next, maybe I have one small acquisition and then a couple of like things that I've been doing, some mending, editing. Ooh, I've gone very yellow. I had this problem in the last video. I think this is why I decided I didn't like it, because half the video was bright yellow. I'm not really sure why. I have a phone, I'm using my phone camera and it's all in auto settings because I don't have any fancy tech and I have no control over the light or the colour. I don't think, so it just does it. So I think for some reason when I turn my head around, something changes, so I need to not do that. But I'm looking at all my stuff that's stacked up over there. I will share with you my one acquisition. So with work, the other day, I went to Norwich, which is in Norfolk, which is in the east of England. It's kind of like in that bulgy hippie bit. I say this because I don't really know that area of the country that well. My partner is from the southeast, which is like south of there. So as you get kind of south of Norfolk, I do know some of those places a bit because he's taken me there, but not really because that's a bit north for him. But Norwich is a really beautiful place. I was going for work only for like 24 hours, but I was getting there in the afternoon and I had a couple of hours before, you know, I'd head back to my Airbnb. I haven't been travelling on my own for quite a while. It used to be something I did quite a bit. In fact, the day after I finished my dissertation at university, I went to Paris on my own for an entire weekend for a conference in which I knew nobody. And I was very nervous, but to go away for an entire weekend when you don't know anyone, in a place you don't know, when you don't really speak the language, that was before I lived there. At that point I didn't know I was going to move there. So yeah, and I have done a few things like that in the past. Like I went to Switzerland on my own and stuff like that. And I always feel like in the evenings I struggle because you can't, like, going to a pub or a bar on your own is not the same. Going out for dinner on your own. In France I found that really easy, but in some places I feel a bit like, I don't know, vulnerable. My partner was saying, yeah, but Norwich is really nice, you'll be fine. It's not like being in a big city like Birmingham, it's completely different. And I know that's a lot of sweeping statements and there's a lot to unpick there. But, you know, feeling insecure as a woman travelling on your own in a place you don't really know. And so I was like, well, I could go out for a few hours whilst it's still light, have a bit of a walk around, and just have an early evening. So that's what I did. So I dumped everything at Airbnb, didn't really bother settling in, just dumped everything and left because it was about 3 o'clock and I wanted to make the most of the light. And it was lovely. I had a walk around, there was loads of independent shops and selling like really beautiful handmade things. But I'm really trying at the moment to only buy things that I fall in love with, that I really, really, really want, that I will really, really, really use, and it isn't just a, gosh, that's pretty thing. And the same with yarn. But there is the Norfolk Yarn shop, and I have been there before because we did go to Norwich really briefly a couple of years ago. And this is the thing, I don't remember loving Norwich as much when we went then than I did this time, but I think that was because I had more time to kind of absorb, slow down and kind of enjoy it. I was on my own, so I had to really work out where I was going rather than relying on my partner. And I think maybe I am more into knitting now than then. I don't know if that was before lockdown we went before, in which case I wasn't very good at knitting. I wasn't using, I guess, more decadent yarns like I do now. I was still using very much like the cheap stuff, which there's nothing wrong with that, you know, absolutely not at all. I think now, because I love knitting so much, I'm okay with investing more of my money into the materials I use for it. And so I didn't really appreciate what was in that shop. I thought it was all Rowan, and I guess I didn't really... Sorry, a very loud truck just went past. I thought it was all Rowan and didn't really kind of appreciate that there was anything different in there, because I was comparing it to Loop London, which is obviously a completely different experience because that was the only other nice yarn shop I'd really been to. But I thought I'd go, I'd have a look because it was nearby. I was walking past it and I went in. And actually, if you're in Norwich, it is a really nice yarn shop. Norfolk Knitting, Norfolk Yarn. And there was a lot of Rowan and like brands that we all know, but you know, lovely colours, lovely yarn. I think they were a Rowan flagship, which is why there was so much Rowan. But then there were lots of like others. There was BC Garn, which I was tempted to buy some from, but I'm going to bear that in mind in the future, because I didn't need any of it. So I thought this is like, they were quite like nice rustic tonal like tweedy yarns, and for me that's the kind of yarn that I'd like to knit like a Felix pullover in, or something like a nice basic decent jumper, not something small. Therefore I'd have to buy a sweater's quantity. I'm not really in the market for that at the moment. I've got a few sweaters quantities worth of knitting to get through first. So I'm going to, you know, bear that in mind. They are a place that sell BC Garn, because I would like to try that one day. But what I did see, spied at the bottom of a shelf, was some Kinross 4-ply. And this is a yarn I've heard Rebecca from Craze Shawl go on and on about. She says when it blocks, it feels like cashmere. So it is a superfine lamb's wool. This is a 50 gram skein. It was £9.50. I only bought one. I did debate buying a couple more, but I didn't know what I wanted to knit with it. I did have a look at my queue, my library list and my favourites on Ravelry, see if there was anything that it would be perfect for I didn't already have yarn for, and there wasn't. So I thought, well, what I will do is I will buy one, because I do really want to try it. This was on my hit list of yarns to try, so I'm not going to buy loads for the sake of it in random colours. I don't know what to do with it, which I'm sure, you know, I could use it for colour work or something like that, but in all honesty I have quite a bit of random 4-ply yarn. I bought this one in Scots Pine, and I'm going to knit one of those like Sophie shawl necktie things with it. And they did have a hat, colourwork hat knit up in this yarn that had been blocked, and it did feel absolutely divine. But I don't understand why. You know, I've knit things in like fine lamb's wool before, and they don't feel like that. So why does this one feel like that when it's blocked? Like, it just felt so gorgeous. I think it'd be really nice for something like a Mount Pleasant tee, because you could definitely wear that on bare skin. And in a smaller size, you'd probably need 3 or 4, so that'd be 30 or 40 pounds. Which, you know, is expensive, but maybe not that expensive for like a luxury yarn and getting a garment out of it. So yeah, so it's spun in Scotland by Todd and Duncan. It's really lovely. So I definitely would like to knit a jumper out of Kinross 4-ply in the future, but it's just not for me at the moment. But I am really happy that I got to get this. It took me quite a while to choose a colour, but I think this probably was the best colour for me. So that was my one acquisition, and I'm really excited to cast that on. And I might cast that on as like a replacement travel knit for the fact that I've pretty much halfway through my Tegna already. I might take that for my upcoming trip, which I should mention. I'm going to Paris for a long weekend in a couple of weeks. I think 2 weeks now. I'm really excited. I'm going to go see some friends. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know whether I'm going to do much yarn shopping, because I actually don't think the yarn shops in Paris are very good. That might be controversial. There's Lil Weasel, which is lovely if you like superwash colourful yarn. but I don't, so that might not be, I'll go, but I doubt that I'll get anything because I'm only buying yarn I really, really want. But I think they have quite a nice haberdashery shop opposite, so that might be more for me. And I know there's La Droguerie, which I used to go to for buying like haberdashery bits again, because I wasn't really a knitter when I lived, well, I wasn't a knitter when I lived in Paris, but I couldn't really crochet either. I was still learning and I was quite poor, so I couldn't spend lots of money on nice materials. But I will go have a look in La Droguerie. But I was watching Inga's video when she went the other week. To be honest, the yarns don't really sound like my cup of tea, so I probably won't buy anything because I'm trying not to spend lots of money on yarn for the sake of it, because it's not necessary. I've got tons of beautiful yarns. I need to really enjoy what I've got. Like, you know, I have this in my stash. I have another 2 skeins of Viola yarn in a blue colour in my stash. Like, I have loads of beautiful yarn. So I'm trying to enjoy what I have. But yes, so sorry, Paris tangent. So I might cast on the Sophie scarf, like the small version, as a travel knit with a pair of socks or something like that. I did think doing the Tegna, the main body, would be good for a travel project, but it might be done by then, we'll see. So the last kind of thing I want to talk about knitting wise is I've been doing a lot of like altering and editing things. Oof. Sorry, my chair's creaking and I'm trying to grab things. So when I first started knitting socks, I think I was still learning about gauge and things like that, and I bought quite a lot of the Amble sock yarn by the Fibre company. And, you know, it's marketed as a 4-ply yarn, so I kind of thought, oh, it's a 4-ply yarn. I've realised since, I think it's probably more of a sport weight. So the socks I knit are... how am I working this out? For some reason, they kind of were quite snug, or they ended up being a bit short, or I knit them too short, and it kind of meant I was wearing through the toes really quickly. Or the yarn isn't just as hard wearing perhaps as other sock yarns, I'm not sure. It's a really nice sock yarn. It's got alpaca in it, recycled nylon, and it has some kind of like bio wash method, eco-friendly superwash experience. I don't really understand. Also don't really know how eco-friendly it is. I haven't looked into it. But it is a really lovely sock yarn and comes in really nice colours. So I had a couple of pairs of socks that I had knit in it, but they weren't really fit for wear. They were too small. I could get them on and I was wearing them, but it was putting too much strain on the toe, and I was just busting through. So what I've been doing is, you can see I really like this colour, can't you? Yellow and grey and orange, it matches my outfit. I have been, with my small circular needles, threading them through like the last row before the toe, which, given that all of these socks had contrast toes, was really easy. And then cutting the toe, the existing toe away, a couple of rows away from where that needle is, and then pulling that last bit out, and then re-knitting the toe, which has actually been really easy. So this is one of those ones. So I actually re-knit this toe using Exmoor sock by John Arbon instead. It did have a different colour toe before, but I like that colour combination. It's not so different. It had a brown toe before. And then I also like reinforced the ball of my foot. And so I knit a couple of rows before starting the decreases, and I think maybe I did some more decreases than normal. I don't know. But the toe is longer than it was before, so it now fits much better. And I reinforced the heels from the inside. Just checking I haven't spotted another hole. No. Which you might be able to see, I don't know. So hopefully they have a lot more wear left in them. So another thing, when I first started knitting socks, like the legs aren't very long on them. So this is something, even though they're quite wintry colours, I more wear them this time of year. So that was a good thing to do. And I did the same thing to these, but I was a bit more drastic. So this is maybe a bit more obvious because there's a bit of a bulge. Let me see if I can, I think they've dried not flat. So before, the foot ended here and then had the toe. So for this one, I chopped the toe off, picked up, and I knit another 3 stripes and then put the toe on. And so it does mean that, I don't think you can really tell, there is a bit of a bulgy bit where I've been weaving in all the ends here, because with these I did actually carry the yarn and did jogless stripe, and I carried the yarn all up the inside, so there aren't ends on every stripe, but there are quite a lot of ends here because I only did those. You have the end from before, you have the 6 ends from adding in the colours again, and then you have the end from that. But I think with wear it will sort itself out. Something kind of strange happened on that toe. They're very different. I think I must have done some extra decreases without some plain rounds. I think it will be okay. It does look a bit weird. Looks totally different. But I think when they're on my feet they're less noticeable. I hope so, because I don't really want to knit the toe a 3rd time. I did debate about actually doing the same thing to the leg, taking the ribbing off and then knitting like some much longer ribbing so they're a bit longer, because they are quite short. But I've decided I'm not going to do that. I can't wear these socks, either these pairs of socks, with my boots, but I can wear them with like my open Mary Jane shoes. So that will be what I do. They'll just have to be more spring autumn socks. On the strength of that, I've gone yellow. Stop going yellow. Go back to normal, please. There we go. On the strength of that, this is a Ripple bralette that I knit last summer, I think, maybe the summer before. And even though I knit it longer than the pattern suggested, and it maybe doesn't look quite so short here, it only comes to about here, because once it stretches out enough to actually fit on, it's really short. So I am thinking, because I've got quite a lot of this yarn left, that I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick up on the last row of 3x3 rip out the 1x1 ribbing, and knit down. And the reason why I'm ripping out the ribbing that already exists is because for both projects I would be knitting in the opposite direction, and so it's going to look different. So if you start a different pattern, it will be less noticeable. It will look like it was on purpose. Whereas if I picked up from the bottom of the 1x1 ribbing and kept knitting 1x1 ribbing, the stitches wouldn't fall in the same place, and the V's would be going in opposite directions. So I'm going to do that, I think. And that might be something I take as a travel project, because if I pick up the stitches and remove the 1x1 and start doing the 1x1 before I go, then maybe doing a chunk of 1x1 on the train is a good thing to do, because I'm getting the train to Paris. So I'm going to fix that. And another thing I'm thinking about fixing, and this one makes me a little bit stressed out, is my Brume hat. I have knit 2 of these. As you can see, this one is massive. This is the recommended needle size, adult size. I think this might be like the large child or something. And as you can see, there is quite a big, let me try and figure out how to, quite a big difference in size. This one's a good length, but it's massive, so actually my partner wears it. In truth, it's too big for him, but what can you do? This one, because I like to wear it folded up, is just a bit too short. I could do with another inch. So what I think what I'm debating doing is cutting the top off, well, picking up the stitches, cutting the top off and knitting another couple of rows before sealing it shut. I'm just a bit worried because it is mohair and unspun Plutolopi, and there are decreases in there, so I don't know if I might just totally ruin it. I'm not sure. So, but it is too small. I don't want to knit a 3rd one because I actually hate knitting rib things. So I don't know, but that's something I'm contemplating. That's it with the knitting. I do have a bit of sewing to share, so stick around for that if you want to, or not if you don't. I have 2 small quilting projects and my dress to share. It does look like this video is going to be an hour again, which is annoying because I wanted to add in some extra footage, and if it gets too long it's really difficult to do that. So maybe I should share my quilting projects next time. I don't know. I'm wasting time, aren't I? This dress, which you should be able to see quite well there, but I will get it down. It's a dress I made a couple of weeks ago. It is by McCall's. It's M769 something. I will put the number below. And I made it in a Merchant Mills. Ooh. It's a fairly accurate colour, I think. A Merchant Mills linen check called Little Joe March check, I think. Which I think is named after the character in Little Women. It's got a wrap front, it's got balloon sleeves. I added inseam pockets. Yeah, it's really lovely. Sorry, the colour of the light keeps changing. I did alter this because I made this dress before in like a green tencel twill, no, a linen twill from, what was it, linen tencel twill from Merchant Mills. And the seam here was here on my bust, and I really wanted it to be like below my bust. So I did lengthen the bodice by 1 inch, which was an easy thing to do. You do it on the front and the back. But otherwise, I haven't really messed with it. I was really on the edge with fabric. You're supposed to cut all of the edgings on the bias. And I think I only had 1.5 meters of this, or 2 meters of this fabric, which wasn't enough. And so I did actually have to patch pieces together for this binding, but you can't really tell. I think, where's the seam? Here. You can't really tell. But it did mean that on the cuffs, this binding here isn't cut on the bias. So I think it is actually quite tight on my arm. I do kind of wish that actually I had made it, cut the piece to be the same width as the sleeve and put elastic in it instead, so there was some give. And if I ever make this dress again, I will make the cuffs elastic instead, because I think that would be more comfortable. But yeah, it's really nice. I think it is quite an autumnal dress, but easier to wear this shape in the summer. But then I'm someone who wears brown all the time, so you know, who cares? I will be wearing brown in the summer. I think this will be really lovely to wear when it gets really hot, because it's so floaty. I am struggling to wear things over it because of the big sleeves. So I think I might have to make a big sleeve cardigan at some point. Sorry, because my Ozetta cardigan, my Seasons cardigan, does have bigger sleeves, but not big enough. So yes. Well, I will quickly share my quilted projects. Maybe I can share them in 7 minutes, not this will stay to 50. As you know, I've been working on making a quilt. I've been using scraps from all of my clothes and some stamped patches I've been getting as part of being a Patreon for Addie Best. Studio lino cut something, I can link it below. But when I've made a quilt before, I pre-washed the batting, and then all the fabrics are pre-washed, and then I stitched it together. Because I'm now using a wall batting and it was a lot fluffier and loftier, I didn't want to pre-wash it because I was a bit worried that if I just put it in the washing machine without being sandwiched between fabric, then it might not be strong enough. I also wasn't sure how well these patches would wash. So I made a sample piece, which was a long flat. And I hand quilted it, and similar kind of approach as I was on my quilt. The batting wasn't pre-washed, it's a leftover piece from the quilt because I have now cut out what I need for the quilt and put it through the wash to see what would happen after I quilted it. And it came out fine, the black ink didn't run, everything was okay, nothing faded. So I think, you know, it's fine, it is washable, so I'm going to proceed with my quilt. But I wanted to use this piece to make something. So I've actually made a cover for my sewing machine. So the edges are just some pre-quilted fabric, remnants from Merchant & Mills. It's like a cotton jacquard, which is really soft. The inside is just plain orange linen. And then I have just bias bound the edges and the bottom. So it feels really lovely, and it makes me think that my quilt is going to feel really lovely because it's essentially the same thing. It's got quite a nice thickness and weight to it. So yeah, I'm really excited. So I did that. And because the piece of batting I have for my quilt is much bigger than the quilt, I do have quite a lot of leftover pieces. So I have to admit, I'm obviously quite addicted to quilting, because then I then made something else. I made this, and I made this in about 2 days. I got obsessed. I had wanted to do, so this is called a sawtooth block. I had wanted to do sawtooth blocks on my quilt, but I was a bit overwhelmed by them because the blocks I did were much easier, and because I was using scraps. Most quilt blocks you do, like, you cut out big squares, you sew them together, you cut that down into pieces, blah blah blah, so you end up starting with needing quite big pieces to make it efficiently, whereas making this kind of block from scraps is actually quite tricky because normally people don't sew them up that way. So this was my first attempt at a sawtooth block, and I used it to make a hot water bottle cover, and I really like it. It's got buttons on the back, it's got a bit of contrast in the top. I do need to hand sew the binding closed so you can't see those raw edges inside. But yeah, I'm really pleased. I made up the pattern. I drew around my hot water bottle, added some seam allowance. In hindsight, I should have added a bit more because it is really snug. I then, on the other half of this, because obviously it was mirrored, I cut it in half and I added a bit extra on the top and bottom so that it would overlap, so that I had my 2 pieces. I think one of these might be the wrong way around. Cut all the pieces out. The inside is just plain neutral linen, but I added some in the neck because I knew you would see the neck, so the neck here is actually green, so that I could see that peeking out. And I'm really glad the neck is open because this is so tight and a little bit small. The hot water bottle only just fits, and getting it in and out of here is actually almost impossible. And I think if I was doing that every time, not only would I be less likely to use it, I think it would put quite a lot of strain on the seams and it probably wouldn't last as long. So yeah. I couldn't be bothered to get because I've got the quilting foot attached to my machine at the moment, I couldn't be bothered to swap it out and do buttonholes, so I just did poppers and then put buttons on top for decoration. And yeah, and this is one of those patches as well. And it's so squishy. I love it, absolutely love it. I think it's so pretty. So it's too warm to use it now. I did use it a couple of times when I first made it. But I am really looking forward to putting this away and having it in the autumn as something pretty, because who doesn't want a pretty hot water bottle? And I'm definitely going to make more. I think it's a really good use of fabrics because I have all the project bags in the world. I don't need any more. I probably will make more in the future, but I don't need to. So I'm probably going to make one as a present for my mum for Christmas. You know, maybe my partner's mother, I don't know. I don't know whether she uses hot water bottles or not. But I've got 3 hot water bottles, so I'm probably going to make another 2 for myself at some stage. But that's everything. Hopefully I'll get to share some footage of goats, maybe some footage of walking around Norwich. And next time I see you, I probably will just come back from Paris. So hopefully I'll have some nice things to share with you then. Hope to talk to you all soon. I hope you're all doing well. Bye.
No. It's quite heavy.
So make sure you support its back.
Oh, no. The other one's eating me. Oh, God, they're so cute. My butt's being nibbled.
That one you went a bit thicker.
What do you want?
Yeah, and quickly, we pointed it out. Hello. Why are you looking at him and not me?
I'm better.